Welcome to the Abbott World Marathon Majors in Conversation with series. On today's episode, I am delighted to be joined by Marcus Brown, who's from the UK and is one of our 6-star finishers. Marcus, welcome to my garden for today's episode, and thank you for making the time to chat with us today.
Hi Lorna, thanks for having me on the call, and looking forward to talking to you.
Great. So let's start by telling the viewers a little bit about yourself and how you became to be a marathon runner.
I sort of fell into running by accident, really. It was through a bet from a friend to do a 10k. I wasn't very sporty at school, and it started from the 10k. Then I got to the half marathon, and I built up to the marathon, which was Aberdeen was my first, and then my first World Marathon Major was London, which was my slowest marathon time.
So looking specifically at your 6-star journey, you ran your first major, as you said, in 2010, which was the Virgin Money London Marathon in a time of 4 hours, 55:13. So walk us through your journey from major number 1 to getting your 6-star medal in 2018.
It was a long journey. So London was my first marathon major, and I did all the rookie mistakes that you could do, run everything too quickly. I mean, I ran the first few miles way too hot, and I really paid for it. I got to probably about mile 8 or 9, and I was walking London, and you're just thinking, like, this is going to be a very long day. I got to, I think, around back Canary Wharf, and I remember seeing my wife, and I think it was one of the first times I ever wanted to tap out. I was just like, I can't do this. And she gave me a proper good talking to. She was like, look, you've come so far, you can't give up now. And that was a really tough race from, running from mile 10 to 26.2. And then towards the end of 2010, I ran the Berlin Marathon. And that was in the days when you could just enter the marathon first come, first serve. And it's obviously more popular now, which is for obvious reasons. And so that was a great race. I was trying to break sub 4, and I think I got about 4:04. And I think that really at the time I was probably running for the wrong reasons. I think I was running to sort of fill myself up because I didn't feel great about myself. So the goals, the marathons were an external thing, and I was trying to break sub 4. I didn't get sub 4. I felt like just devastated for a while, and I stopped running for a couple of years actually.
Okay, so London, Berlin, and then I guess you headed to the US.
So I actually started going with London. Actually, I got a ballot place for London in 2015, I think it was. So then I got back into it then, and then I was speaking to a friend, and she's from London, and she'd run the New York City Marathon. And for some reason, I just ran London and Berlin and thought, that's just my lot. I'm not going to do any others. And she spoke to me about how amazing it was. And I was thinking, surely it can't be as good as London. She's like, no, it's better than London. I was like, okay, cool. Someone from the UK saying that, then maybe I should sort of see it. But at that sort of time, because I couldn't picture it, I kind of ruled out that I could achieve something like that, or I could even go for like the US marathons. And then once you sort of set that sort of idea in my mind, I just sort of thought, okay, well, I want to try some of this. And I just tried to figure out how I could get into the race. And 2016, I think it was, when I ran the New York City Marathon, and it was just an incredible experience. And that's what really sort of got me sort of kick-started to run the rest of the majors.
So was that the first time that you heard about the 6-star system then, when you were in New York?
Yes, so New York was the first time I heard about the 6 stars. I remember seeing the medal and the Abbott's World Marathon Major stand, and I was thinking, oh, okay, what's this about? But at the time, because it was my first US marathon, you're not really thinking that far ahead, just thinking, just do the marathon. And I had such an incredible experience in the marathon. Had that photo taken around mile 20 odd with me, sort of my arms across, and every time I go to New York since, I've sort of seen it in the Javits Center or around the course. So that's an amazing sort of memory. And the irony is that when people see that photo, they sort of think, well, you're at the finish line. I was like, well, no, I still ran about mile 20, 21. So it's still quite a way to go. But obviously you could tell, like, I obviously enjoyed the experience as much as you can do for the marathon. But I think for New York, what made it is it's just like a block party throughout the 5 boroughs. The people, the crowd was incredible. It's a hard course, but it's just incredible. So and that basically started me to think, okay, what's next? So how can I get to Chicago? How can I get to Tokyo? How can I get to Boston, which are the remaining races?
All right, so let's pause our conversation for just a minute, and we're actually going to watch a short video that our camera crew did with you after you crossed the line of Boston in 2018.
I'm Marcus Brown and I'm from London.
What did you just accomplish today?
Oh my god. I started this journey in 2010 and I've earned this.
Yeah, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot. I've gone through so much to get.
No, it's okay. It's okay. What we know is he's very emotional and inspirational.
Oh my god, I've just gone through a lot to get to the stage. I never thought I'd get this. Oh, I need help. That's all I get.
No, that's great. You know, this is a common reaction. I mean, I know you work hard to get this. Is this your biggest challenge of all the city today?
Oh my god, today was so tough. That driving rain, headwinds. It was just so hard. Oh.
So it was a hell of a day to get your final one, huh?
It was the hardest one, and I'm so proud I achieved it. It's such a big accomplishment, and I'm just so happy I could have done it in the best marathon in the world, the hardest one, the hardest conditions, but I've done it, so if I can do it, anyone else can do it, so proud to have got to this stage.
All right, cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Go get one.
Marcus, it was clearly a very, very emotional experience for you. Tell me what was going through your mind at that time and why it was so overwhelming.
There's so much to that question, and the day in the build up to Boston 2018, we knew that the weather was going to change, so it was kind of a lot of last minute changes, and I remember sort of sitting down in my hotel room just writing down all the scenarios of things that could go wrong and well, and how I would get through them. So come race day, it was kind of like what I kind of imagined. It was going to be uncomfortable, it wasn't going to be great. So the headwinds, the rain, just so cold. And I remember starting the race in Hopkinton, and it was just incredible. Just like history, but it wasn't what I expected, because you weren't really in the mode to sort of enjoy it. I was just about literally just one foot in front of the other and getting to the end as quickly as possible and getting dry and getting warm. So much of the race itself was a blur, because I was just really in a kind of survival mode, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I remember even when I got to top of Heartbreak Hill, I didn't even realise I was at the top until I saw the signs. That's how much I wasn't really
looking down the whole time.
Yeah, literally just looking at my feet, kind of thing, just looking at the vicinity around me. And then I crossed the line, and it's like elation, but I wasn't really sort of feeling all the emotions there and then. And I remember thinking, wow, it's really cold. Let me get my medal. Got my first medal, the Boston medal. It's amazing. And then I was thinking, where's the 6-star? Got my 6-star medal, and then a gentleman tapped my arm and said, "Oh, do you want to do a video?" And I was thinking, oh, it's really cold. Do I say no? So I was like, okay, cool, do the video. And I was kind of still in kind of just blanking everything out kind of mode, just getting through the day. And he said, "Oh, tell me about what you've done." And he said, "What have you achieved today?" And for some reason, that kind of like pierced something inside of me when you sort of see that video. And it took me back to the reasons of why I started it. And it was so many different reasons. I mean, I can get into. So one of the reasons was because my wife and I experienced a miscarriage. And it was for a child that obviously I've got 2 kids, but I always sort of think of 3 kids. So I was thinking about that child and running for them. And that was quite emotional. And also just the way I'd started my running journey. I was running away from something, I guess, in terms of my own anxieties and things like that. And I think part of that had to do with just in terms of just race, and just not so much the indirect and the overt racism, but just the general experience I had growing up through my life. And the only way I can sort of describe it is it's kind of like sandpaper, just grinding away at your kind of inner being. And I think I always grew up in the sort of feeling of not being enough, always not being treated as like a first-class citizen almost. And doing the marathon, I guess all throughout my life, I've always been an overachiever. So people look at me and think, yeah, you're really successful in what you're doing. But I think it always came from a place of not feeling I had enough. So one, it was for my child. And the second, when I did that, I was just like, wow, I've actually, all the things I've been looking for, I didn't really need to look for because I really had that within me. So even now thinking about it, it's quite an emotional time. It's still quite hard to watch that video back because it does bring everything back.
Well, it had me in tears, so I can only imagine how you felt, and it's such a poignant moment. Now you talked a little bit there about some of your experiences, and you've done a really excellent podcast with American runner Alison Desir, and it's well worth a listen for those who haven't yet. And you questioned whether that you should be using that platform to address these topics, which can be difficult for everybody to talk about. Do you want to expand a little bit more on that? It's really quite fascinating. Yeah,
so for me, running has always been, why do you do it? It's been a sense of freedom, adventure, joy. And I didn't want to think, I need to make it really heavy and talk about race and make it, so other people can't really relate to it. I want to keep the joy in it. So that's what I was kind of asking about it. And also, it's uncomfortable for everyone to talk about race. And I didn't want it to be an uncomfortable situation. I wanted to talk about the things that we all enjoy. But I guess in asking that question, it was kind of like, well, what can I do? And sometimes you can overcomplicate things. And sometimes it's just by talking about it and mentioning it is enough. And it sort of prompts a conversation. All you need to do is have a conversation. You don't need to be putting up trees and, starting a movement. So I just think, just start from where you are and, just move from there and just have the conversations that matter.
Absolutely. Change and tackle it, but let's get back to your running journey. So not only are you a 6-star finisher, you've done 11 majors on your profile because you did London, New York and Berlin multiple times. And what is hugely impressive, Marcus, is that your times keep getting faster and you are now chasing this sub-3. So I'd love to hear firstly, how have you been able to shave 1 hour 55 minutes from your marathon time? And secondly, how fast do you think you can go and what are you doing to try and get there?
I've got a coach basically, and that's been a big help. He's helped me learn how to train properly, understand the different paces. At the beginning, I was just not really respecting this distance. You sort of think that you can do 16 weeks and that'll be enough. He sort of told me and showed me that it's just the blocks that you build and the months and months and years, that's where you get the consistency. That's why the elites are so good, because they've been doing it for such a long time. It's not something you can sort of jump into. And having that long-term vision really has been really helpful. So you don't get sort of too down about, having a bad run here or there, because if you keep at it, you will improve. So how have I got better? I wish there was like a simple answer or, one magic workout, but it literally is just sticking with it, being consistent, running on the days that I don't want to run. And trust me, there's lots of days that I don't want to run. But when it all comes together, it's an amazing feeling. So, I just think just the consistency is probably is the main thing in terms of how I've got better. It's
hugely impressive to see that you started as a non-runner and you've gone, you're now, what's your PR currently? Is it 3:04?
3 hours and 19 seconds, which I ran in New York, which I guess is one of the toughest courses of the 6. So I think if I can run it there.
Close.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, I sort of still believe that I've run a sub-3. Because I was due to run London, obviously, but due to the coronavirus and, for safety reasons, it was rightly postponed. So in my head, I'm still pretending that I ran a sub-3 in London in April. And so I just sort of go forward and move forward into October when it hopefully happens.
It's coming for you, Marcus. It is. So aside from your sub-3 quest, what else is next for you in your running journey?
Beyond sub-3, I'd love to earn a championship place for the London Marathon, because it's my home city marathon. And just beyond that, I just want to see how fast you can go, really. I just want to be able to look back and sort of say, I gave it my best shot, and, have no regrets. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, we know when you're not running, you're also very active in the running world, known to many as Marathon Marcus. Tell us about your podcast and what else keeps you busy when you're not clocking up the miles.
That's quite a funny one with my Instagram profile, the Marathon Marcus. I think because Marathon Marcus was taken, and I started off thinking, well, I run marathons, I'll just call myself Marathon Marcus, but it's not something I sort of call myself on the daily. So it's a funny one when you sort of look back at it. It's one of those sort of like first embarrassing emails that you sort of start off when you're a young kid, but then you sort of carry on. It's like, well, what happens when you do an ultra race? What happens when you do a 10K? So I'm just sort of rolling with it now. So yeah. But beyond that, I mean, I'm really enjoying doing the podcast. That's something that's sort of come through the lockdown. It's been really interesting to talk to, just various people, regardless of speeds, in the running community, and just learn about their motivations and what, keeps them going, and the reasons why they run. And ironically, we're all looking at running as like, say this is our truth, but then you speak to someone else and they look at it from 1 degree difference and another degree difference, and it's still true how they're looking at it. So in speaking to them, I'm learning something myself. So I guess because I really love the sport, for me, it's almost like an education at the same time. So I enjoy the conversations.
They're brilliant, and people can find your podcast across a variety of channels, and I highly recommend. I'm thoroughly enjoying listening to them as I work. You are a huge inspiration to many in the running world, so I just want to close today by finding out who inspired you or still inspires you to get out there every day and do what you do.
Good question. I wouldn't say there's probably one person. It's different people. I mean, I'd say when I'm training, I want to do well for my family and my kids. Essentially, like when I go for a run, that's the first people I see. Like my daughter, she knows she's like, Daddy's going running, and she does like the little arm movements. So this is really cool. And then I really want to do well for my coach as well. I guess within that sort of field, those are the kind of people immediately. But in terms of who inspires me, I couldn't really sort of say there's one person, because you could look at someone who say runs a 2 and a bit hour marathoner, but then you could speak to someone who's run a 5 and a bit hour marathon, and they're still going through the same amount of pain, and still going through different challenges in their life. And that's what, without plugging my podcast too much, I mean, I've spoken to so many inspirational people across the speeds of the marathon distance, and they all inspire me. So I couldn't really say one person. I know it sounds like I'm sitting on the fence, but I think I've spoken to so many inspiring people. It'd be unfair to sort of just highlight one person, because everyone's got like a degree of truth that I've taken forward and I've sort of used in my own life and reflected on.
And I think that's what we find as we go to all the majors and interview a real cross-section of our global marathon community. Everybody, like you say, is coming at it from a different place, but you've all run the same miles, you've all put in the work. And those goosebump moments come from all walks of life and all abilities. Thank you so much, Marcus, for sharing your 6-star journey with us. You really are an inspiration, and good luck with that quest for your sub 3 hour finish. We need to catch you on camera again when you make that happen at one of the majors in the future. Yeah,
thank you. Hopefully it will happen at London in October. So
we will be looking for you there. Fingers crossed, and stay safe. And hopefully the majors are back soon, and we'll see you pounding the streets as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Lorna.